Today's topic is very divisive, so if at any point I make you guys feel uncomfortable, you're more than welcome to click away. However, if you do manage to stick around, I highly appreciate of you. Now, to the surprise of many, I'm actually more worried about being inaccurate. So if you spot something, leave a comment down below. Hopefully, we've done our research enough that we won't have to correct ourselves so much. Now, without further ado, whoosh! Our story begins with a man named Karl Marx, who, to the surprise of many, was not Russian, but actually German. Yep, communism was invented by Germany, such as Volkswagen, NASA, rockets, Dr. Einstein, Dr. Seuss, and hamburgers. Yes, freaking hamburgers. Germany, why? Why are you beating us at our own game? Darn you! I would shake my fist if I remembered to draw it earlier. Anyways, I got sidetracked. Where was I? Oh, yes! Marx. Marx was born in a world where the system favored the rich and the wealthy rather than the poor, middle, and working class. However, despite being poor, he was a prolific author and a bright man. He wrote a handful of books containing his ideas. However, his magnum opus was the Communist Manifesto. In it contained many of his ideas, some of which are still considered extreme to this day. You know, not many people know this, but apart from being an author, he was also a politician. The term manifesto means a list of things a person or a group wants to achieve, especially before an election. Speaking of election, it wasn't just Marx. It was also his buddy Friedrich Engels and the rest of the Communist Party. They were campaigning for their local election. The Communist Manifesto, it was nothing more than a campaign book. The group was really hoping that if they won the election, they could ratify Germany and hopefully change the world they were living in. They wanted to create a better system, one that they found more ideal. A system that will benefit the masses rather than just the wealthy few people, because everyone knows that the 1% will ruin I'm sorry, I got sidetracked. Now, the term communism gets tossed around a lot, but I think I'll let the man himself explain. Marx, take the stage.
Thank you. Now, imagine a system where everyone contributes and everyone benefits. We all do as much or as little as we can, from donating the $1 million to charity to simply sweeping the streets. There is no stigma, and if everyone plays fair, the resources will balance out. No more, no less. That's the general idea. Of course, one of the first challenges is to get everyone on board. Communism is very easy amongst the peers and the family. But once you add more people, in order to achieve communism, especially on the national scale, let's say, things get very tricky.
Thank you, Marx. You see, fellas, it wasn't just Germany that favored the wealthy, but also North America, England, as well as the rest of Europe. When Marx was alive, slavery and child labor were still a thing. Marx and the gang, they lived in some really dark times. They believed that if they won the election, they would be able to change Germany and hopefully inspire not just Europe, but pretty much the rest of the world. Marx, however, he knew that he wouldn't live long enough to see that happen. But hey, someone's got to plant the seed. And Marx couldn't have been more proud than to be the man to do it. A common misconception about Marx was that he was a crazy poor man who simply wanted to murder wealthy people. But that couldn't be further from the truth. The overall goal of communism is not to devalue the rich, but to completely eradicate poverty. Now, the tricky thing about poverty is that it comes in many shapes and sizes. Sometimes it's the lack of financial stability, bad health, lack of education. We all have different definitions of what poverty is. But I think Dave Chappelle's dad said it best. He said, "Dave, you are not poor. Poor is a mentality that very few people ever recover from. Don't you forget that, son. You are not poor. Your ass is broke." Now, for my audience watching at home, if you're still sticking around, thank you, I highly appreciate it. But it doesn't matter if you believe in capitalism, doesn't matter if you believe in communism, doesn't matter if you believe in prayer or socialism, Whichever one of those you think is the best at fixing poverty, that's not the point. I'm not going to spend my time arguing. But if there's one thing we can all agree on unanimously, is that being poor sucks. If anyone knew this too well, it was definitely Marx. His entire goal in life was to make sure that nobody else had to live in such a harsh world. The gang did not win the campaign. But little did Marx know, his book was being shared all across Europe, and it was growing in popularity. Eventually, that little campaign book made it all the way to Russia. Eventually, it would be picked up by these two Russian gentlemen. Yeah, of course, they were teenagers at the time, but they would one day grow up to be known as Trotsky and Lenin. Stay tuned for part 2.